So I guess you could say that the Lord of the Rings of Power, is a good news, bad news story. What's the bad news? This isn't Tolkien. Some of the names are the same, but this is not Tolkien. This is in no way in the spirit of Tolkien. Tolkien would not have written this warrior princess Galadriel is not something that Tolkien would have written. Tolkien did not write Mary Sue girl bosses. So this is not Tolkien. And even as just generic fantasy streaming series, it fails at that too, just because the writing is so poor and the acting is at best serviceable, mostly bland. And if you like it, fine, no problem. There's lots of people on the planet. We're allowed to like different things. But from my perspective, this is a complete waste of time. Now, the good news is there are so many other things you can do with your time. Going for an hour-long walk every week, that's a much better use of your time. Collect stamps, that's a better use of your time. Rewatch the Peter Jackson movies, that's a much better use of your time. And I'm not the only one thinking this. Average audience score, 36%. Now, of course, the critics have it at 84%, but does anybody listen to the critics anymore? I am much more interested in the audience score these days. And I know they're saying review bombing and all that. No, it's not no, this is just objectively not a good show. And if you've watched it already yourself, which you probably have, you're likely thinking to yourself, what were they thinking? Well, actually, we know what they were thinking. Executive producer for the show, Lindsay Weber, told Vanity Fair that, quote, "It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like." Why would that feel natural? That seems kind of unnatural considering that Middle-earth is a magical fantasy land. Maybe people liked that world as it was. Maybe that's why it was so popular. And I want to be clear right now that although their casting choices did do its part to chip away at the suspension of disbelief, which is necessary for, a fantasy series, that isn't why this show is so bad. The show is bad because it's poorly written and it's boring, and the acting is at best kind of okay. And House of the Dragon did the same thing. They race swapped. And in House of the Dragon, it still doesn't make any sense, just as it doesn't make sense in The Rings of Power. But House of the Dragon is a much better written show and a much better acted show. But what do the people who actually matter? What do they think about The Rings of Power? How about this? As usual with these streaming companies like Amazon, Netflix, AL, they slaughter a widely cherished IP by blowing the entire budget on production quality, but seemingly have interns doing the writing. It's a snooze fest, even for the most fervent Lord of the Ring fans, and I didn't make it past the first episode. I'm sorry it had to be this way, but I hope Tolkien's descendants at least got some good money out of it. They did. They got a lot of money out of it. I believe they got $250 million out of it. But after what I've seen, Amazon wasted its money on that. They would have been better off just doing something, inspired by Tolkien without using the Tolkien name, without using the Lord of the Rings brand or any of that. Because if the content isn't good, if the product's not good, the brand doesn't matter anyway. Here, lousy dialogue. It's very slow and gets boring. Everything important and canonical happens in only 10 minutes. So far, it has not been possible to connect with any character. Here's another one. Generic fantasy TV show. Not really worth your time. A TV show full of money, a fan fiction full of effects. This is a cringe fest diatribe of a monumental scale. The script, dialogue, and acting is laughable. The actors, and I say actors loosely, are abysmal. Galadriel is shockingly portrayed as someone who is unrecognizable to people who have read the older works of Tolkien. To be fair, this is not the actor's fault. We all know who is to blame. The whole tone feels nothing like Middle-earth, something that Jackson brought to the screen so easily in the Rings trilogy. Even he took liberty from the book to screen, but it still felt like Tolkien's world. 2 episodes are enough for me. I've been a huge Tolkien fan all my life. The first 2 episodes are jarring. The blonde elves all have faded undercuts and aren't remotely distinct from the humans. The costumes look like they're from a school play. The exposition is gaudy and amateur. It seems like they just wanted to piss off the right people and just ended up annoying everyone. Well, it seems like they were trying to please everybody except the core fans, and they've produced something that's not going to be popular with either. It is Lord of the Rings in name only. Perhaps those who are not fans of Lord of the Rings will enjoy it, but it isn't great if you are a fan. Yeah, and it's a theme that we keep seeing. This is not Middle-earth. This is not Tolkien's world. And again, we come back to this. It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. Yeah, and this statement doesn't just reflect the purely a superficial aspect of just what skin color people are, but also a shift to a kind of a modern leftist philosophical view. That's why we get Princess Warrior Galadriel, or Galadriel, as people are calling her. Again, that's not a character that Tolkien would have written. Tolkien didn't write girl bosses who don't need no man. People love Tolkien because it doesn't reflect what the world actually looks like in any way. It's a very traditional world. The themes in it are very traditional. It's not woke. It's not woke in any way. And it was written as a mythology for England, not the whole world. And that's what gave it the charm that the whole world ended up embracing. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.